Hello and welcome back. So this beta is slowly coming to an end on the 15th of this month, that's pretty much today. And well, I do want to talk about the game and I do want to talk about my personal experiences with the game, with this beta and the first beta. And I think I do have a lot to talk about, starting with the combat, with the graphics, and then with the overall game design, and pretty much comparing it to the PC version of Eve. And well, so far, my personal experience with the combat was absolutely amazing. It pretty much is almost identical to the PC version of the game. Pretty much you will use same mechanics and it does work pretty much the same way. Ship fittings for combat and pretty much ship fittings in general are kind of different here because you will have the drones in the medium slots, not in a separate window like we have on the PC version of the game. And I think that does take some time to get used to, but I personally think it's not that much of a problem anymore, since it will be pretty much from the start of the game that way. Who knows? Maybe they will change it with time. We will see. But the UI, of course, is looking a little bit better than in the first open beta. I do like this UI a lot. It is clean pretty much, and one thing though that I'd like to change a little bit is the module layout. I feel like there needs to be a button to hide the whole UI for screenshots and pretty much for stuff like that, since this game does look very pretty. Now, as for anomalies, missions, contracts, you will have all of these things in the game. Anomalies are going to be pretty much your main income in ISK. Now, of course, you can choose a majority of ways how to make ISK in the game. You can choose to be a pirate, you can go mine, you can go hunt, you can go rat, you can pretty much do anything that you can imagine. And uh, all of these ways to earn money and all of these ways to earn ISK in this game are valid. Now, speaking about the settings, well, you have several options how to play. You can choose for auto orbit, or auto combat, and stuff like that. And I do see that being used if you're, for example, working, or if you're, for example, doing something else and you don't have time and you don't have time to actively play the game. I personally did not use at all the auto options, since I do like to play this game myself. That's where I get the most pleasure from, is when I actually play the game myself. Now, the whole combat idea is so far really solid. I think no one will have any problems with the combat in this game, since it is pretty much identical to the PC version of the game. You also will pretty much have to get used to the modules, of course, and the drones. And the ship fittings are also kind of different. So ship fittings and stuff like that will be mostly similar, but again, you will have some ships that are going to be a lot different than in the PC version of the game. I'm really glad that the developers actually did listen to us and that they did actually give for the lower tier frigates. I think they actually gave them a lot more slots. They gave them better buffs, and I think they did a really good job with balancing things out. Now, in this game, you will have you will have ships of 10 tiers, pretty much 1 to 10, and you will have also anomalies from tier 1 to 10, which also pretty much is a little bit different from the PC version of the game, but still the whole concept and of course the whole execution idea, it will be pretty much around the same. You still can use for example, tier 2 frigate for tier 4, tier 5 anomalies if it's built really well, and of course if your skills are pretty much very high. And but of course, I would recommend that you keep your rank, that you keep your ship that you keep your ship rank within the range of the anomalies that you do, and of course the missions, since that way you will not get into any of these weird problems that do tend to happen from time to time. Now, as for the overall graphics of the game, I would say this game does look very pretty. Now, people did tell me that the graphics in this beta look a little bit more blurrier than compared to the first beta. I don't know. In my case, I think everything is crystal clear. However, I did play the first beta on a 1440p display, so Technically speaking, since that phone that I used during the first open beta is currently decommissioned, it's not working anymore. It kind of broke, and currently I do use a very powerful device. It has only a 1080p display panel, though. That's the one bad thing that's the only bad thing about this one, is that I pretty much use a 1080p panel on it. It's not a 1440p panel, and in that aspect, yeah, it is blurrier because I am playing on a lower resolution display. But in general, since I did use the same phone for in the first beta, of course, I would say the game looks around the same. Now, I would actually agree that the game kind of looks a little bit more blurry in some aspects. I remember the planets looking a lot sharper, for example, in the first beta, and who knows, they might have tuned down the graphics a little bit. This is, of course, unconfirmed, since in the end, I'd say the game looks pretty much the same. And they also did add several different effects in the game. Some of these effects are including reflections, better shadows, and fog, volumetric fog, and things like that make Eve be Eve. And I think those changes in graphics do make the game look prettier. Now, of course, I would ask you to confirm if the game looks blurrier now than compared to the first open beta. I'm really curious to see what people will say about that, since I'm really curious to see if they actually did change the resolution a little bit. Since I am actually using the maximum settings in the game, I do use maximum settings in this game, since it looks just very pretty, and it would be a shame if I wouldn't record this with maximum settings, since this game is indeed very pretty, and I do like it a lot. Now, of course, there are also several issues that I did notice, and some of these issues are the explosions that I think are underwhelming, especially when you shoot down larger ships like cruisers, battleships. Battleships are kind of alright. That seeing them explode does look kind of pretty. But seeing cruisers explode is really underwhelming, since they just like almost explode like a frigate. And I would like that they change that. I think some explosions need to be majestic, some explosions need to be flashy, since all these different ships from these different races use pretty much similar technology, of course a little bit different. And I think having a little bit different explosions for all of these different races is definitely going to be a very interesting touch to the game. Now, of course, second issue that I did notice recently is that the rats do not have physical indications of getting damaged. Now, as you can see here, you can watch this Myrmidon's shield, armor, and hull, and you pretty much don't see damage on his hull, even though he is almost going down. And in the first open beta, that was actually the case. You could see damages on other ships. Now, this is not a problem for player ships. Player ships do show damage, but rats don't, and I don't know why. I think that's a bug, and I'll definitely relay the information to the developers. But that's the only like these are some like minor problems that I noticed that kind of take away from the game. But again, they're not too much of a major problem. Now here you can see my settings. Like I said, I use everything maxed out, pretty much 1080p maxed out settings on this device, and of course it runs really good. Now, speaking of performance, pretty much the game currently is capped at 30 frames per second, which is necessarily not a bad thing. It is capped at 30 frames per second, and if you're worrying about the battery, it does not use that much battery. In my case, the game uses around 20 to 30% of the CPU at peaking at 30%, and it doesn't use much of the GPU either, since it's only 30 frames per second. And of course, since this is a pretty big game, and since the distances are very big, the GPU will not have to render a lot. So graphically speaking, this game is not that much demanding, and that's why the game does have potential to run really smooth maxed out. on 60 frames per second once they implement that feature. Now, speaking of system requirements, well, this game could be played on any phone that's iPhone 5 or the Android similars and above. It is not a very demanding game. However, it does require a decent processor. So I personally, like, if you were to ask me what devices you should play this game on, well, mid-ranges from 2017 and 2018 should be able to handle the game pretty well. And if you have any phone, any flagship from 2015 and up, it should run the game just fine. So pretty much, if you have a flagship from 2015 and up, you're good to go with the game. It will run perfectly fine. If you have a mid-ranger from 2016, 17, 18 and up, the game should run very fine as well. So you don't have to worry about system requirements for the game in that perspective, since the game is very generous on the CPU and GPU. And of course, you also be noticing later on some lag. Again, the developers are still in the process of optimizing the game, and the game still doesn't utilize the GPU to the fullest, since remember, it's only a 30 frames per second cap, and that can lead to some lost frames. But again, that's not a big problem. They're going to fix that. They're going to fix that. They've confirmed themselves that they are going to work on the optimization always. And in that perspective, you don't have to worry about this game roasting your phone. You don't have to worry about buying a new phone. Now, one thing though that I would recommend, since this is Eve after all, and for this game, you will have to have a very big display in any way, shape, or form, because there is going to be lots of stuff going on, and you definitely want to have the visibility. I personally, when I have the money for it, of course, I will buy a tablet for this game. And I think playing this game on a big tablet is the way to go. That's like what I personally think, since tablets have big displays, and you don't have to pretty much. It's a lot easier to play on a tablet than on a phone. Now I know current phones have big displays, including mine, and they do look very good. And on a phone, you should be able to handle everything pretty well. It will not be that much in a way, but of course, having a bigger display is always great. Well, since I'm already on the topic of graphics and ships and stuff like that, I do want to take a moment and look at the ship details in this game, since I think the overall graphics on these ships, the overall design, and the overall look of the ships is definitely very similar to the PC game, and of course by design they are pretty much exactly the same, since they do use the same ships. But the graphics, yeah, they look very good, and all of these ships are designed, and they're pretty much well designed, and they do look very good and attractive in all shapes and all forms. And I'm definitely glad that the developers did end up boosting a lot of stuff about the graphics in the game. It's definitely worth it. And one thing though that I did notice, the CPU usage definitely was reduced a lot from the first open beta. If you remember, in the first open beta, the CPU usage would go 60-70% on majority of phones. Now it's 20% on majority of phones, which is damn impressive. That they did a fantastic job at optimizing the game, and of course, that definitely deserves a praise, since this game is definitely going to be a lot more demanding, of course, when you have a mass fleet battle. If you remember the first open beta PvP that we had, pretty much the first mass PvP at Kedama, yeah, that was, for the majority of people, that was really laggy. But currently, in the last event that we had over here, the Citadel Defense event, the frame rate was really smooth. The frame rate was really smooth despite having more than 300 ships on the field shooting each other. So that was really good, and the servers, the frame rate, the phones held really well, and the game, of course, held really well. So in that perspective, you don't have to worry about much about the performance, since they did do a fantastic job at making the game smooth, and of course making the game accessible to a vast majority of people. And in that case, I'm definitely going to get some of these ships when the game gets released. Like I said, the Dramiel and Macariel are pretty much one of my to-go ships. Sadly, my Macariel arrived a little bit too late since I just made it, and well, the beta is unfortunately ending. But anyway, I'll get that ship when the game gets released in mid-August, of course. So I'm definitely interested to see how that will go. All right, well, let's jump in. So let's jump in and let's fly around a little bit. Now, speaking of the graphics, the stations also look really well. Besides the stations, they also did a very good job at designing the planets. The planets look very good, and I will fly to a couple systems, of course, and I'll fly to a couple planets, and of course I'll fly to a couple stars as well, just to show you the difference in the design choices, and of course the difference in all the cosmic objects. And of course, warping and pretty much warping in, warping out, jumping is going to be smooth. The jump, you will have a little bit of a delay when you jump from one gate to another, and that is pretty much normal, and they are fixing that, I think. But in this game here, pretty much you have several star types. I think the only star that I did not see is a magnetar or a pulsar. I did not see these two stars, unfortunately. Maybe there are, maybe I just missed them. But you pretty much have you pretty much have a lot of these star types. I think they included all star types in this game, which is impressive. And of course, I will fly to some of them. The stars look very pretty. They definitely did a fantastic job designing the stars. And as you can see, even the reflections on the ship do look really well. And they do look kind of realistic, if I were to be honest. Realistic in a way of how they behave. It's pretty much what you would be seeing in real life if you were that close to a star with a ship like this. Now, for planets, you have terrestrial planets, ice planets, you have scorched worlds, you have barren worlds. You pretty much have all these different types. One planet type that I did not see are hot Jupiters. Pretty much they are gas giants that orbit at a star. They orbit their mother star pretty much at close distance, and that causes them to be superheated. And interesting fact, I think one of the first exoplanets that was ever found was Peggy 3. Kind of forgot its name. Was long ago. Was long ago when I read that. And that planet is also currently one of the biggest planets ever found. And that planet is a hot Jupiter. I think they actually literally saw it through the telescope, since that planet is just that close to its mother star. And it is very big and very massive, and it's pretty much its atmosphere pretty much consists of plasma. That's what I read, at least 10 years ago. I'll definitely put the actual name of the planet here in the black bars, just to be safe. Now, besides these planets, you also have water worlds, and well, that's a nasty storm going on that planet. Definitely would not want to be in the atmosphere of that planet. They did include atmospheric effects for the vast majority of planets. Even the terrestrial planets, the Earth-like planets, do also have atmospheres in them, and they also do have storm patterns in them. They have clouds moving left and right, of course, which is also definitely a very nice touch to the game. And speaking of Earth-like planets, you have planets like these scattered throughout the game. They are also my personal favorites. They look very pretty. I'll show you a couple of these in this video, of course. They are pretty much my favorite planets, and they do look very pretty. And of course, speaking of other graphical effects, you will have the bloom in the camera. You also have the atmospheric distortions when you look at the sun through the planet's atmosphere. And all of these effects are all nice touches to the game, and I do like the little details that are put into the game. And definitely something that's very interesting. And of course you have ice worlds like these. That planet also reminds me of Europa. Europa pretty much one of Jupiter's satellites that is suspected to have ice under its sheet, which I think humans will actually explore and some point in the future, in our lifetimes as well. So definitely interesting times ahead. and also you will have big gas plants that will have different moons and pretty much all that very interesting stuff. Now, of course, you can mine these planets a little bit different than the mining that is in EVE Online, but you also can mine these planets and get the resources, minerals, and of course, then you can go to them and pretty much collect the container. You can steal people's containers in low sec and null sec. In high sec, that's not possible. There is no combat in high sec, of course. In null sec and low sec, there was lots of combat, and I was part of it, of course. And in that perspective, combat perspective, low sec and null sec are definitely going to be a hotspot for combat, and I'm definitely looking forward to see how that will turn out to work. I'm also looking forward to join a corporation, and hopefully it will be a good time. This is one of those games that I do plan to play for a very long time, and I definitely did meet a lot of good people here that I actually think that are very good people, and
Warp drive
definitely
active.
looking forward to play this game with them. I think it will be a very good experience, and let me see what other planets I can find. Now, as you can see, there are like different types of planets. You will have like yellow dwarfs, you will have white dwarfs, you will have stars like our star. You will have pretty much all these different types of stars are in the game, and all of them have different colors, which is again very interesting. You will see couple stars here in this video. Pretty much, I will fly a little bit and pretty much enjoy the scenery a little bit. And one of the things that I do also kind of like expect this game to have the market. The market, since it is already working really well, of course there were some problems with the market. For example, at some points you wouldn't be able to
Warp
access it
drive
pretty much
active.
because it was glitched, and you wouldn't be able to buy some things, which I think did cause some problems, at least to me, since I missed a cloaking device that was really cheap because I couldn't access the market, even though I pretty much had the money, I pretty much had everything, but I just couldn't access it. So minor bugs like this might slip, but I think the vast majority of testers did report them. So I think the developers will actually fix them by the time the game gets launched
Warp drive
in a month
active.
from now. And in that perspective, I think this game is pretty much a good finished product already. It has a couple of it only has a couple of these minor bugs, minor problems that need to be fixed. Pretty much nothing else besides that. All right, sorry for the weird cut. So the main marketplace is definitely going to be Gita again. People are going to that's pretty much going
Warp
to be
drive
like the
active.
center of trade. And at first, everything will be expensive. That's at least what I expect, since at first everything will be rare. And as time progresses, as people get better and better ships, as people get better and better modules, and of course rigs and minerals, prices will go down. And pretty much the most expensive things are definitely going to be the faction ships, the faction modules,
Warp
the
drive
officer
active.
modules. Rigs, of course, are going to be expensive. Mining equipment will be expensive. I personally think, because mining will be a very interesting thing in this game. I think a lot of people are already decided to be miners. That's actually perfectly fine with me. If they want to be miners, I mean that's the way that they want to play the game, and that's totally fine. I personally, I don't know what path I'll choose. I was thinking if I should just go pure, well, I was thinking if I should just go pure hunting, but I don't know if that will work. I will have, I think, I don't know. I plan to have two accounts, at least two
Warp drive
accounts. I'm not
active.
quite sure if I'll do it in the end. I just might have to stick with one. I don't know, depends. But I definitely, I'm definitely going to be in low sec and null sec a lot, since that's pretty much the place that I got used to in the game, and pretty much that's the place where I'll be mostly located at. Now, where that will be exactly, I don't know, but low sec and null sec is definitely a place for me to go. And what systems, what like constellation, I have no idea. It depends on the corporation that I will join. But at first, the start will be very interesting. Speaking of the start, I don't know how many pre-registers the game has. I think there is over 1 million already. I have no idea, and it kind of worries me a little bit because I have no idea how the game launch will look like with 10,000 people per system, minimum, of course. I have no idea how that will look. The servers, however, did hold out really well with 300 people on the citadels in one system. Pretty much, it did hold out really well in the systems that the citadel defense was located at, and hopefully the same like stability will be with 10,000 players per system, since I think there is over 1 million already pre-registers for the game, and there is only 1 month left until the full release. So I think things are going to be very interesting near the release, and my personal expectation for the full register numbers is around 2 to 4 million. That's at least what I expect. So definitely seeing the game launch will be very interesting, and seeing how the servers will handle that much stress. I mean, the developers better be ready for it, since the launch will be very heavy for the servers, and the servers are definitely going to have a lot of horsepower if they want to hold out that many players. But we'll see. The release is 1 month away. My personal experience in the first open beta and the second open beta was definitely good. I think I enjoyed personally the second beta a lot more because the game was more polished. The game definitely had more modules in it. They did fix a lot of problems with the first beta, and they fixed a lot of the ships. They did fix the faction ships. Now, the faction when I'm the faction ships that are going to be nerfed are definitely the new faction ships that we currently have. The one that I'm currently flying, and of course the battlecruiser variant of it, they're definitely going to be nerfed at least 40%. I think the developers said 40%, and I think that's a fair nerf, since currently these ships are just ridiculously overpowered, and having them nerfed and more balanced compared to other faction ships is definitely going to happen. And faction ships, like I said, are going to be the end game ships. Everyone is going to be after them, and people are pretty much going to fly them a lot. Now, I will pretty much first go for the Dramiel and the Cinnabal, I think, when the game gets released, and afterwards I will focus on other ships. But again, things might change in the meantime. But I'm definitely going to go for these ships. Those ships are pretty much. I like those ships a lot, and I just want to fly them again. And speaking of for the modules, of course, the layout again, like I spoke earlier, needs to be a little bit more. I think it needs to be a little bit more polished. I don't mind how it looks currently, but I think they could have make it a little bit better. Speaking of also of the modules and faction modules, one good thing though that will happen, alpha clones and omega clones are going to have access to all the faction modules. Again, I think that's a very good decision. And alpha clones are going to be limited to Mark 7 equipment, pretty much tier 7, and the maximum ship that they can fly is going to be a battlecruiser. They will not have access to they're not going to have access to battleships, at least from the start. That might change, of course. It depends how things are going to go out. I don't know what other ships they will introduce. Triglavians might be released in about I'd say maybe a year from now. Who knows? Maybe within the year they're going to be released. And that will be also very interesting to see how they will turn out to work. Now, one thing though that I definitely did notice in this game, the fleets. The fleets here currently work pretty much the same as they work in the PC version of the game, and I personally think having the fleets be very similar is a good idea. I think it also needs to be polished out a little bit, since I was in couple fleets a couple times, and I think one of the things that I did not like about that is that the communication between players wasn't great. Uh, Definitely TeamSpeak or Discord is a must, or at least having a voice option, voice chat in the game is definitely gonna help. And the fleet commander should have a. Now, one thing though that I did notice is that the fleet commander button, I think that needs to be a little bit polished out because I didn't see a lot of people complying with the fleet commander in fleets. And personally, we did miss a couple kills because of that, because people accidentally warped in or they accidentally warped out. I think when the fleet commander warps the whole fleet, then the whole fleet should insta warp with the fleet commander. And that's one thing that I think needs to be added to the game, or at least to be optional in the game. I think having both options should be a good idea, since it will give a lot more, I guess, tactical abilities for the fleet. Now, overall, that's pretty much I think that's pretty much the majority of my personal opinions and and my personal thoughts on the game. Of course, I did enjoy this game a lot. Definitely, one of the most fun moments that I had in this game are definitely the fleets, definitely the Citadel fight. Warp drive active. Pretty much comparing this game to Evil 9 is pretty close, I'd say, since the game is almost identical with a little bit of different things, different mechanics, but still almost identical to the PC version of the game. And for people who do play Evil 9, I think this game will be a pleasant experience on the go, of course, and of course you can play the game serious if you want. I'll play this game a little bit more serious, of course, like I do play the game right now. I think I was really serious while I was playing this beta test, and I did enjoy the game a lot. Definitely a wonderful experience so far, and can't wait for the launch. Can't wait for the full release. Fleet battles, of course, mass fleet battles, and still defenses are well made. They're pretty much, they feel the same as they feel in the PC version of Eve, and I think people are going to enjoy them. Since pretty much I think they're going to have the same feeling when they play this game and when they play the PC version of the game. And of course, I was asked a lot of times before what I would say to people who are first time getting into Eve. I'd say give this game a try, give this game a go. It's a fantastic game. Definitely currently on Android and iOS, the most advanced game made so far, and no game that is in the same genre as this game does come close to this game in terms of overall feel, in terms of the fun factor, and of course in terms of the overall idea behind it. There is currently one game though, Second Galaxy, not my favorite game, of course. I did play Second Galaxy last year. I was pretty much following its development for a while, and Second Galaxy does not stand a chance against Eve Echoes. Eve Echoes is just going to pretty much eat that game alive. And I've heard Second Galaxy already started dying, so that's interesting to know. That's very interesting to know, since this game, in all terms of, in pretty much all perspectives, is superior to the same games in the same genre on mobile. Currently the most advanced game on a phone, and it will just get more advanced and it will just get better from this point on when it gets released. And pretty much I do hope that everyone enjoyed the beta while it lasted. It was definitely a pleasant experience. I had fun playing it, I had fun recording it, and I absolutely enjoyed every single second of the game. And I hope you enjoyed watching, since I did try my best to be as informative and of course as entertaining as possible. Well, with that being said, feel free to post any comments down below. I'm sure to read them. Feel free to ask me any questions. I'll be sure to answer all of the questions. And well, that's, I guess, this was the final fight of Eve Echoes. I definitely had fun playing this game. and I hope that you had fun watching, and of course I hope that you had fun playing. I
Warp
also have
drive
to say a big
active.
thanks to the developers for pretty much giving us access to play the beta and pretty much giving us access to enjoy the game. I have to thank the community for being a good sport, and I have to thank the community for being awesome. You guys are dominating, and definitely it's my honor to play this game with you. And of course, it's my honor to uh, record these videos for you. Thanks for everyone who supports me, even if you're a subscriber or if you're not, even if you're not a subscriber. Thanks for supporting and thanks for watching, I guess. If you want to support me, you can like and subscribe, and of course, you can follow me when the game gets officially released. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed. This was the final open beta test of Eve Echoes before the full release, and it was a good ride. It was a very good ride, and I am looking forward for the full release of the game. And with that being said, it was my honor to play this beta for you. Fly safe, and I'll see you next time. Take care.